Hello everyone, this is Prince Kisi and welcome to my channel Engineering Made Easy. In this part of our tutorial series working with step 7, we'll have a look at the Simatic Manager. Now let's look at some of the things that we will learn within this part. Okay, so we will have a look at the installation of the Simatic Manager. Basically, because we are not making use of a physical PLC, we will make use of the simulator to do almost all the work we'll be doing in this part of the tutorial series. Okay, so the next item that we will have a look at is starting the Simatic Manager and then also creating a project out of the Simatic Manager. So basically, you create your first project within the Simatic Manager. Next, we will have a look at the program structure, the Semantic Manager, and how to call the help in the Semantic Manager. And then we'll have a look at addressing. Basically, addressing is the key part of Siemens PLC programming, because if you understand the addressing system, then it will be easy to write programs and then do everything. So we'll have a look at the absolute addressing, and then we'll create a program also using symbolic addressing. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so basically I'm on my desktop now. In the previous part, that was the part 2, we had a look at the installation of the software, the Semantic Manager, and also how to install the license key, that is the automation license key. Okay, so after the installation, you have a look at starting the step 7 software. So I'll double click for it to start. Okay, so after the software starts, the first thing I would like you to have a look at is whether the simulator, which is this section of your software, is activated. So sometimes after installation, the simulator will not be activated and you need to install the simulator manually. If not, it's not activated, what you do is you have to close the Semantic Manager again. Okay, so you go to your installation folder again. Okay, I have mine here, and then you move to a folder called PLC Sim. So open the PLC Sim folder. Okay, you go to the media and then you look for the executable file, which is this very one. Right click on it and then run as administrator. Okay, so you follow the steps next and then it will run. Okay, so you move here and then you can click on next. Okay, so basically you follow this process to install the simulator, but in my case that's already been installed, so I'll click cancel. Finished, and then I can restart Semantic Manager once again. Okay, so after starting, we have the new project wizard. So basically, if you follow the new project wizard, you should be able to do your first project. But first, we need to confirm whether the simulator is back. We can see that the simulator is activated, so we can go ahead. All right, so we click on next. Okay, so at this point, it's asking us to select a CPU. So we scroll down, and I think the CPU that will need you to select is a CPU 314. Okay, we select that, and then we have a look at the next. We have the Mpi Adapter Address. So basically, the programmer that we use in programming the PLC mostly is called an Mpi adapter. So the address is always to address 2. So basically, you leave this one untouched, and then you move to next. Okay, so we have a couple of blocks here, but for now we will select only the OB1, which is our cyclical OB. So as we move further, I will explain to you exactly what OB1 really means. And then the next step is to select the language that we'll be using. So basically we have 3 languages. We have the STL, we have the ladder, and then the functional block diagram. So for now we will stick to the ladder language. So we select that and then we click on next. Okay, so we are here. We have where we can enter the project name. Basically, this is our first project, so call this project getting underscore started. So let me change this to okay. So we have our first project, and now with everything done, we can click on finish to complete our project. So this will take some time, and then our project is being created. Okay, voila. So basically we have our project screen now. So I will walk you through the interface of this step 7 project. So basically the Simatic manager is where you organize all your projects, and then other windows can be opened as well at this particular point. So let's get started. At this point we have a hierarchy tree, and this is our project name, getting started. If I drop it, I have a couple of items also down here. We have the Schematic 300 station. So basically this is the station that we chose, the CPU and then the hardware. We'll look at the hardware configuration later on. And then we move to the CPU. We have the CPU. Inside the CPU we have the S7 program, and then we have the connections. So under the CPU, you see we have the S7 program. Under the S7 program, we have the source and then the block. So the block that we chose during the program setup was the OB1, and then we have the OB1 inside our program. Okay, so we'll also have a look at the file. The file system is basically where you can create a new project, either a new project from scratch, or you create a new project using the wizard. You can open, close projects. Other projects that you have within your system that is already open, you can also have a file or have them down here. Okay, we have the edit button. This is where basically you can cut, you can copy, you can paste items, select all, and then we have object properties. You can have a look at object properties right from here too as well. Insert. Okay, so we can insert stations, we can insert S7 blocks using the insert button. We have the PLC button. Here we can do our downloads. So PLC side we can do our downloads, and then also do modification. We have monitoring. We can modify variables. We can also monitor variables as well using the PLC menu. We have the view. With the view, we can also go offline or online using the view. We have the options. Under the option, we have one particular important point, that is the set PG stroke PC interface. So basically, this is where you set how you want to program your PLC. So how you want your laptop or the PG. PG is basically the programmable device. So how you want the programmable device to be interfaced to your PLC. This is basically where you do the setting. We will look into it after, so basically I'll just do an introduction to it. Okay, we have windows where you can organize your projects. You can open, when you have several windows open, you can see all of them here, and then you can be flipping in between projects or windows right here. Okay, our help button is basically where you can read your help manual. So if I point to this and then I click on help, or I click on F1, to automatically open my help button or my help page for me. I can go to the station and then click, or I just hover around the CPU and then I click F1, and then I will have my help. Okay, so basically now we have our first project created. Okay, so now with our project created, we can see our block, which is our OB1 right here. We'll now have a look at how addressing is being done in the S7 program or the Siemens PLC. Okay, so on our screen we have the example of our addressing. So basically we use I for inputs. So inputs is denoted by the letter I, and then output is denoted by the letter Q. Then in Siemens PLC, unlike other PLCs like Allen Bradley that make use of a 16-bit addressing scheme, PLC, that is the Siemens PLC, use 8 bits in its addressing scheme. So if we look at the IO card, which is the input card, we can count the number of bytes on this particular card. So this is our byte 0, which is from byte 0, byte 1, byte 2, and then byte 3. So it's 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so basically when you come here to do the addressing, then your first byte is your byte 0, your second byte is your byte 1, your third byte is your byte 2, and then your fourth byte is your byte 3. Okay, within this byte we have number of bits in there. So if you look at the first byte, we have bit 0, bit 1, bit 2, bit 3, bit 4, up to bit 7. Okay, so if I'm to address this and it's an input card, then I will say that it's I1.5. If I'm referring to I1.5, it means that if I come to my input card, I have to look for byte 1, bit 5. So this is my byte 1, this is my byte 0, this is my byte 1, and then I have a specific bit 5. Okay, so the same thing applies to the outputs as well, which is denoted by the letter Q. Okay, so your output, it will start from bit 0 up to 7, but remember, on this particular rack, we have the same card, or let's say an input here and then an output on the other. Immediately we finish counting with the input, we need to continue the number of bytes. You don't say because the input ends at the fourth byte, your next card, if it's an output card, you start from byte 0 again. No, it does not work that way. So if we have 4 bytes on this particular card, the next card will continue to byte 5. So we have byte 0, byte 1, byte 2, byte 3, and then our output card, which is a 16-bit card, will be byte 4 and then byte 5, just as we see here. So if I'm referring to, let's say, bit 7 on this particular card, I will say it's Q4.7, which means I'm referring to the fourth byte and then bit 7. Okay, so basically that is how addressing is done in the Siemens PLC. So this is basically data addressing. In our next tutorial, we'll have a look at how we address analog cards too as well. Okay, so now after the addressing, let's have a look at the typical setup of a Siemens PLC project. Okay, so we have the PLC right here, which is the 300 station, and always the arrangement of the PLC, that is basically the arrangement of the modules on the rack, is basically fixed, and there is no need, you don't need to change the arrangement position. So when we have a look at how we set up hardware, we will go into details how exactly it's done. But as it stands now, just a review of how setup is done in the PLC. That's the Siemens PLC. Okay, so on your rack, the first item on your rack is always your power supply. So you can see right here we have our power supply. The next item on the rack is the CPU, the central processing unit. That's the second item on your rack. And then mostly you will have an IM, which is interface module, coming before the SMs, that's the signal modules. And then sometimes you will not have an IM, so the signal modules come in right after the CPU. So in this setup, we have the power supply followed by the CPU, and then we have the interface. There's no interface module, so we have our SMs, which is the signal module. So with the input modules and output module, it can be arranged anyhow. You can bring an input module before an output module, or you can bring an output module before an input module. It does not matter. So from the SM cards, which is the IO cards, then you have cables connected to a machine that you need to control. So if it's a process that you need to control, all the cable will come to your inputs and output cards. If a standalone machine, the cables will also be wired to your input and output cards. So we have the machine to be controlled right here. Okay, so after you have this physical setup, then you need to write your step 7 program, and then you download the program into the CPU. So here we have the setup for the program. So the program is always written on a PC. So a dedicated PC for writing Siemens program, they normally term it as the PG. Now you can also use a normal PC to do your program, or a laptop to do your program. So you need to have your step 7 software installed, which we've already done in our part 2. You also need to have your programming adapter or your programming device. In most cases you use the Mpi adapter if it's step 7 300 station, or step 7 to 400 station, sorry. Or you can use an internet connection, Ethernet cable connected from the PC if it's having a CP card, and then you connect it to your laptop, and then you can do the transfer of the program onto your PLC. Okay, so basically we are now done with the absolute addressing, that is how to do the addressing in Siemens PLC. Okay, so now with that one concluded, we'll now have a look at how we can program with symbolic addressing. So if we come to our the S7 program, we can see a symbolic table here. Let me change the view to this particular view. I like it this way. Okay, so the symbolic address is, the symbolic table is here. If you double click on it, it will open. Okay, so we have this screen. So basically here the only OB that we have is the OB1. Now let me explain what OB1 does. Just like any other programming language, like let's say Arduino, when you want to program, you have your setup and then you have your main loop. The loop is where you write programs that will run continuously without stopping. So in the PLC we have similar thing. In OB1, that is our cyclical OB. That is where the program will be executed continuously without ending. So any function that you create, any program that you create, you need to call it in OB1 or before it will be executed continuously. So that's the purpose of OB1. So here, if let's say we want to write a program and we want to create symbolic addresses for our program, this is basically where you come to do your symbolic addressing. So I can start with, let's say, stop. If I have a stop push button, and then the addressing, this is going to be an input address. So I'll say I0.0 because that's my first input address. Data type, because it's an input address 0.0, the data type is going to be a bool. Then you can put your comment. So here is the symbolic name, then you can put the comment here. So if let's say this one is my moto 1, I can say M01 underscore stop, and then I can put my comment here, stop. If I come here in my moto 1, I can say M01 underscore start, and the same addressing. Now automatically it detects that I have made use of 0.0, so it will move on to the next addressing system, which is 0.1, and then this is going to be my start. That's my comment. So basically that's how you create your symbolic table. So we'll create one output for it. So I can say M0.1 underscore command. So this is going to be my command, and then this command, but basically this is my command, so it's my output. So I'll make it careful. Remember, output is always denoted with the letter K. So it's my first output, so Q 0.0, and then I can come back here and say let's say command. Okay, so basically this is how you do your symbol. You give your program symbolic names to make it more readable and then more understandable. Okay, viewers, this brings us to the end of our third part of our tutorial series working with step 7. In the next part, we will have a look at a typical program within the step 7 to have more in-depth understanding of how the step 7 software works. Thank you very much for watching. Subscribe to my channel and like if you want to see more content just like this. Thank you. Bye bye.